All right, guys, we're going to do there we go, 3.1b notes section here in your packet. So we're still using everything that we've learned about slope and y-intercept, right? Slope in the beginning point. So we know that m stands for slope, and slope is rise over run. But what does rise represent, right? That's the first thing they're asking us here. Well, rise just represents, remember, the change in y. The change in y. Or another way to think of it is how far up or down to go, right? How far up or down to go. Okay? And then above each of those, I'm going to put what tells us if we go up and what tells us if we go down. If it's a positive number, we're going up, and if it's a negative number, we're going down from one point to the next as we move from the left to the right, which is exactly what run represents, right? Run represents the change in x, and the x-axis is side to side, right? So the change in x. And because that bottom number in slope, we always want that to be a positive amount. If the fraction for slope is negative, we know that the negative always goes with that numerator, that top number. It's always going to say, really, how far to go to the right, because the bottom number is always positive in that fraction. How far to go left or right. And I'll put left or right on there and not just right, because you'll see here there's some ways that we want you guys to use the slope to find all the points that go on a graph and not just the ones that go to the right. And you'll see what I mean by these first set of examples here. So it says graph the following equation, follow each of the steps. So this first example kind of walks us through these steps, okay? I know when I look at this equation, I'm going to have to zoom in for a minute. I know when I look at this equation, right here's my m and right here's my b, right? That's my slope is 1 over 4, and that's my y-intercept or beginning point as a positive 1. Well, remember, for the y-intercept or the beginning point, the x value is 0. So if they ask you to write an ordered pair for the y-intercept, it's always going to be 0 for the x value, and then it's whatever b is, in this case a positive 1. Okay, so there's my y-intercept. And then what's it say? Plot the point on the graph. So after you know where the y-intercept is, see, this is why we were calling it the beginning point before. That's where you're going to begin. That's how you're going to graph this equation. You're going to start by putting a point where the y-intercept is. So I'm going to go to the point 0, 1 on the graph. I'll zoom out so we can see everything together there. Okay, I'm going to go out and graph 0, 1, which is right here on my coordinate plane. And then I'm going to use the slope, which is telling us the rise and the run, to know how to go forward from that point. How am I going to graph from that point going forward? So I'm going to go ahead and put my slope there. It is 1/4. So my rise is 1, and because it's positive, just like we put up above, I'm going to put an arrow going up. I know I'm going up because it's positive. And then the 4, of course, is positive too. So I'll put to the right. So from your beginning point, not from the origin, but from your beginning point, in other words, your y-intercept, you're going to go up 1 and over 4 and put a new point. I'll erase my little line there so you can see that a little bit clearly. I went up 1 and over 4, and then do it again. And then do it again, and do it as many times as you can until you run out of graph. Okay, from there I can go up and over again. Up 1 over 4 puts me right here, and then I run out of space. I can go up 1 and over 2, but that's not the slope. So I'm done with those 3 points. Okay, but wait, there's more. If you read the directions down here for all of our steps to graph, it says, from the y-intercept, follow directions from the slope to plot other points on the line. We did that. To go the other direction, go reverse. So go back to your beginning point, and instead of going up 1, go down 1. Instead of going to the right 4, go to the left 4. And look how this works for us. If I go down 1 and to the left 4, that puts a point right here. Can you see how that point's on the same line? Right? You can see how if I were to draw a line connecting those first 3 points, this line would continue that line. This point, this new point we just put on here is still on that line. And that's because I'm still using that same slope. I'm just going backwards. Do it again. Down 1 and to the left 4. And once you have as many points on the graph as you can, then you can draw a line. What we don't want is just to see a line starting at the y-intercept, and that's it. Now with the magic of my iPad, I can make that line look really straight. If you have a ruler, you can use a ruler. If you have any other kind of straight edge, sometimes the calculators work, sometimes not. You can use those as a straight edge. Or just do the best that you can. Try to draw as straight a line as you can. But we want to make sure that we include those arrows on both sides. There we go. Because that line's going on forever, right? If the graph was bigger, I could have put more points on there. I could have kept going up 1 to the right 4, up 1 to the right 4, up 1 to the right 4. So we include those arrows at the end of our line. Now, if you look on the next page, I'll move through these ones a little bit more quickly, but I'm just doing the same thing. Start with the y-intercept, graph that first. That's why we call it the beginning point. So for this second example here, y equals -1/2 x plus 5, my y-intercept is 0, 5, right? And that's the point I'm going to graph first, all the way up here. And then I'm going to put my slope. And remember, we want it as a fraction because it tells us 2 very important things. It tells us the change in y and the change in x. Or in other words, it tells us the rise and the run. And this slope is negative. It's -1/2. So like I was saying before, we want to make sure that negative goes with the top number, goes with the numerator. So it's -1 over +2. And what's that telling you? That now the rise is negative means I'm going down and to the right. So from that beginning point, 0, 5, I'm going down 1 and to the right 2. And that's what I'm going to do. Down 1 and to the right 2. Down 1 and to the right 2. Until I can't go any further. Down 1 and to the right 2. And then go back to the beginning point and do the opposite. Instead of going down 1, go up 1. Instead of going to the right 2, go to the left 2. And I can only do one more point there. Okay, you can see though how that point is on the same line. You can tell. And then just go ahead and draw your line. Now that we have all of our points on there, we can go ahead and draw our line. Now mine, kind of missed that first point. So you see, not even math teachers are perfect. But once you have your points there, just do the best that you can to draw a straight line. Okay. For this third example, it looks a little different for 2 reasons. Number one, there's not a number in front of x. What's my slope? Well, we always know that if there's no number in front of a variable, there really is. It's a 1, right? So I'm going to put that in there. It's a 1. And then how do I make a whole number, which is this 1 is a whole number, into a fraction? I just put it over 1. Okay, so there's my slope. And notice that my y-intercept is negative. That's why they have that minus there. So my y-intercept is at 0, -5, and that's my beginning point. That's where I'm going to start. So 0, -5 on that graph is right here. And then let's write out our rise and our run. In this one, it's back to like the first example where it's positive. So 1 over 1 means I'm going up 1 and to the right 1. From the beginning point, not from the origin. Use your beginning point once you know the slope. Up 1 to the right 1 is here, up 1 to the right 1 from there, up 1 to the right 1 from there, and there, and there, and there, until you can't go any further. Go back to the beginning point and do the reverse, do the opposite. So instead of up 1, go down 1. Instead of to the right 1, go to the left 1. And then draw. Oh, wow, I really missed the points on that one. And then draw a nice straight line connecting your points. Okay, for this fourth example, same thing. It looks a little different. There's no number in front of x. There is a minus sign, which is telling me my slope is negative, but negative what? Well, we know to add in a 1, and then just to make it a fraction, so it's negative 1 over 1. Let's write down our y-intercept first. Our y-intercept is a minus 1 there, so it's a 0, negative 1. And then let's go ahead and write out our slope, our rise and our run. Since our rise is negative, right, that top number, that change in y is negative, I know I'm going down 1 and to the right 1 from the beginning point. So let's go ahead and graph the beginning point. My y-intercept, or my beginning point, is 0, negative 1. So I come over to my graph, and I'm going to graph 0, negative 1, which is right here. And then from there, my slope was negative 1, so I'm going down 1 and to the right 1. Down 1 and to the right 1. And I keep doing that slope until I run out of space on the graph. I go back to my beginning point and do the reverse, do the opposite. So instead of going down 1, I'm going to go up 1. Instead of to the right, I'm going to go to the left. And I keep doing that until I run out of room. Once you have all the points, graph them. Oh, finally, that looks a little bit better. Actually, that's probably my best one yet. And then this fifth and final example here, I've got y equals 4x. Now, this looks like a proportional relationship because there's no plus b at the end, right? It's just y equals mx, where m is 4. My slope is 4. Well, let's make that a fraction. We know how to do that. Put it over 1. But what's my y-intercept? Well, if it's a proportional relationship, we already know it's 0, 0. But why is it 0, 0? Because really, even though there's nothing written, at the end of this equation is a plus 0. Do you have to show plus 0? Does adding 0 to this equation change it at all? No. No, that's why it's not there. So, but we know it starts at 0, 0. We know it starts at the origin. I'm going to put my beginning point on my graph, and then I'm going to use my slope. Write out my slope as my rise over my run. And it's a 4 over 1, which tells me I'm going up 4 and to the right 1. From that beginning point, which just happens to be at the origin this time. Up 4 to the right 1 is right here. And I can't go up anymore. There's only 2 spots left to go up, and I need to go up 4. So I go back to my beginning point and do the reverse, do the opposite. Instead of going up 4, go down 4. Instead of going to the right 1, go to the left 1. And then once I have those 3 points, I'm ready to draw my line. Make sure you include your arrows on the end, and that's all there is to it. Use the beginning point, use the slope to tell you how to get to the next point once you have your beginning point or y-intercept graphed. All right, go ahead and work on the assignment. If you have any questions, make sure you ask your teacher.